coming. It's a new transition. Sometimes we're going to have some hiccups and well, we just take it on as we have always done. And Jessica's joining us now as well. If you have a problem, share the problem with me. I'm not aware of the problem. I can't fix the problem. So we're in this together. If there are issues that you are battling with, let's address it, because yesterday I had a group of students in another class that said to me, "Sir, I don't know. I don't know how to access. I don't know how to access." It was a group in Centurion. I don't know how to access the link to these live sessions. I said, well, there's 3 ways that you can do it. A, calendar. And I actually said to him, listen, I'm going to ask the students in class in front of me, because it was a contact session, who of you went through the calendar? And some of the students raised their hands. I said, who went through just from the announcement that they received? Use that and clicked on that, and because that's in a way that you can do it via Canvas. You can also go to the particular week 7, for instance, and you can click on all the different options. If you next a couple of times, you'll get to a live session page. The links for the whole week are there. So there's different ways, and everybody has used different methods to do it. It's like all of us are going to take different approaches when we have to travel from Cape Town to Joburg. We've had that analogy before. But please, if there's any challenges, let me know. At this point, while it's in the back of my mind, next week we're gonna there will be another class test for you to do. I think it's available on after we finish the session on Tuesday next week. Again, similar fashion as the previous one. I think it is also 40 marks. And then on the 19th, the following week. No, it's the 19th. 19th is next Monday. No, where are we now? No. Not coming Monday, the Monday after that, the 19th, would be your term test. Okay, I actually went through it this morning because there was a change that needed to be done. I haven't set the paper, but I was the moderator and I picked up something that needed to be changed, and the assessor told me that he will address it today, and then I'll upload it onto Canvas, and it will be ready for you to do on the 19th. And again, pretty similar. I'm not sure if it was with the test that you've written thus far. It's available the whole day. So if I say it's the 19th, it's available the whole day. If you want to only do the test after we've had our third period session on Monday, you're welcome to. If there's questions that you want me to address in preparation, in final preparation, you're welcome to do and wait till after the session. There will be class on the 19th, third period, like they are always on a Monday. If you don't attend, I'm assuming that you're writing the test. If you are there, I will definitely be available for you to ask me any questions in preparation. But we can also spend time next Wednesday, the last session before your term test, to do a bit of revision and just highlight some of the aspects. Okay, I'm not going to do a brief of the paper itself. I'm not going to give you a breakdown of what it is. I'm just going to, but we can talk about the context of the paper and the type of questions. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I just thought I'll share that while it's in the back of my mind before it goes somewhere else, because every year after the age of 50, your memory sort of lapses. And I just thought, let me get that out the way while I'm at it. But let's go to chapter 6. And chapter 6, people, is actually not a bad chapter. It's an easy chapter. As a matter of fact, we can easily finish it in one session, because there's no extremely difficult concepts that we have to grasp. It's basically the backbone of this chapter is around how do we price a service. It's quite simple. A product is not that difficult to price, because you know that you took so much of you took the following quantities of a particular ingredient to get to the end product. Maybe, for instance, bake a cake. You need eggs, you need flour, and you do whatever, and icing sugar, and butter, and milk, and whatever you need. So you can actually, the cost of that is easy to determine. What you want to make as a profit on that is also easy to determine, because that ties into what your strategy is of your company and your pricing philosophy or pricing strategy is, and targets. It's slightly different for a service, because there are a few things that impact on a price for a service, like going to have your hair cut or booking a flight to fly from Cape Town to Durban, purely because of one element, and that is what the perception of the customer is towards value. What is valuable to one person is not necessarily valuable to another person, and that's one of the biggest challenges of finding the correct price for the service that you're offering. On the screen, we have again all the different learning outcomes that we want to achieve in this chapter. I'm not going to address them. They are there, and we cover them throughout the content of this chapter. You'll also find that we don't refer to price of a product. We refer to fees and premiums and fares and rates. Those are sort of terminology used when the exchange of value happens, because that is what that is how you pay for a service. The service provider has something of value. You have a need. You have something that you, in exchange, will offer to that particular person in exchange for that service. And how you experience the service, and that's where the big challenge comes in. How do you quantify the experience of that service? There's no price on that, because it's different from one person to the other. It does, however, play a very important role in the decisions that customers take, and therefore it is a concept that needs to be well understood. And therefore, although this chapter is called the pricing of a service, it more sort of focuses on determining what is valuable, or what the value of the service is for a customer, so we can determine some form of cost, some form of price. The greatest challenge, and why it's difficult to determine an accurate price for the service, is because you don't take ownership of the service. You book a flight, you pay for a flight, you fly to Durban, and that's it. You can't reuse that. You can't use it again tomorrow. You can't use it again next week. If you want to use it, you've got to pay for it again. You cannot, or you can't take ownership of a service, and as a result of that, your experience is going to vary from one flight to Cape Town to Durban to the other. And when you then book your third flight, because you've had different experiences, they have different values for you, and therefore the price that is offered when you have to book your third flight to Durban is going to be a determining factor, because what you have perceived as being valuable, as it might not be for other people on who wants to book a similar trip from Cape Town to Durban. There are obviously fixed cost and variable cost involved in determining the price of a service as well. But oops, I forgot that it works in a different manner if it's on Teams. If you want to determine what you need to charge for your service, you need to determine what the perceived customer value would be. And the perceived customer value would be the customer's benefit that they will receive, the total cost for the customer, and the difference between those is what the customer perceives as being valuable or not. Right, let's get to some examples that we can use. Now, there are different types of value. The 4 types of value for a customer is that there could be product value. In other words, that's a flight from Durban to Cape Town, or Durban to East London, or Durban to Johannesburg. That, in other words, is this, the fact that there's a plane and it's got a trained pilot in it, in our seats, and they are serving you drinks, and that's all. That's the product that you are experiencing as part of the service of flying from Cape Town to Durban, and not driving yourself, because you can now sit back and relax, and it's going to take you a much shorter time to get to your destination. The service value itself is the convenience that comes with you not having to do the trip yourself. You just have to be at the airport. It comes at a cost, and the convenience of getting from Cape Town to Durban in 2 hours, where it probably would have taken you 15 hours if you have to drive. There are also personnel value. In other words, the people like the pilot, the airplane crew, those are all people who play a role in your experience and therefore add value or take value away from your experience as a customer. And then there's the image value. That's the image of the service that you are using. Some people prefer to fly with certain brands because they perceive those brands to be of a better quality. Although it's still the same plane, it's still a pilot, the seats. I haven't seen any new revolutionary designs for seats in planes. They're pretty much the same. Slight differences, cosmetic differences, but they're pretty much the same. Space, pretty much the same. You have to go from a different class, from economy class to a business class, if you want more space and more luxury. But again, it's still the same. It's a seat. You can't leave the plane while it's in the air. You've got a window next to you, and basically the image of how that brand or that particular airline, in this case, is perceived by the customer is going to determine or it's going to play an important role in you deciding which airline you're going to use. Obviously, in some cases, you're limited because certain airlines only fly to certain destinations. It's usually then when it becomes difficult because you're used to flying with a particular airline and now they don't fly to that destination. So you maybe, but strangely enough, I booked my flights to America around the main airline that I would like to fly with, and some of the other connecting connecting flights were with different ones. And I know that when you do that multiple city bookings, it is possible for you to choose different airlines. And for me, it was just important that I wanted to get on the Emirates airplane when it leaves Cape Town, and I want to fly all the way to New York in that. But I understand completely that when you're flying domestically in America, for instance, I need to go to Los Angeles, and from there I need to go to San Diego. Then I know that obviously there are other alternatives available. And then the search starts as to what is the best domestic airline in America, because there are different packages and different prices to get you from New York to Los Angeles to San Diego, for instance. So those are all seen as image values. And obviously, if you recognize the particular brand and you have heard from friends of yours about positive experiences, then it's so much easier. Right. There is also costs involved. Now, there's monetary cost and there's non-monetary cost. Monetary cost is actually, you can say that's what you pay for the service. You go for a haircut, it's 150 rand for a well, I don't know. What does haircuts cost? And ladies, I don't know. I mean, the entire classes of ladies. I just go to the clipper club, and or sometimes if I'm too lazy, my wife cuts my hair because there's obviously not a lot left, and it's an easy job to do. I mean, but I mean, if you want a particular hairstyle, and a particular cut, you need somebody that knows what they're doing. What would the average haircut cost you nowadays, ladies? I've got no idea. $300-400? Anybody?
No, so way more.
Way more?
Way more. Mine's like 900.
Oh my God, I will either wear a wig or I would actually let my hair grow. That's, wow. Okay. No. Then now I'm glad I've got 2 boys. Oh my goodness. Okay, right. Now I've learned something as well. $900. What do you get for your 900 rand? Or is it just a cut and blow?
No, it's like highlights and stuff.
Okay. No,
yeah.
So okay. No. That is a sort of outing. That is an event. It's not a haircut. It's a no. I can completely understand, and it makes you feel fantastic afterwards, right? It's worth it. Let me put it this way. Now we're talking about customer value. Is it too expensive in your opinion, or do you get proper value from it? Do you think it's value for money?
Yeah, sometimes.
What affects that what affects that it is not the same all the time? Is because I'm pretty sure that if I was in your shoes and I had to pay that for a haircut, although it's what I want, and I know I'm going to receive compliments afterwards, you're definitely going to the same the same person all the time, right? It's not a different hairstylist, or what do they call them? I don't know. It's the same person, right? Or is it just the same? Is it just the same hairdresser or the same saloon? It's not necessarily always the same person.
Yeah, I always go to the same person at the same salon.
Yeah, and I think that also adds to the premium of the service, because you are familiar with a certain individual, you've built a relationship over time, and that's what that industry, or what the service industry is about, to ensure that you build that relationship. It's not just a mass-produced product, it's a specialized service, and therefore you are prepared to pay for it. And it's not just what you experience on the day itself, it's how it's done, and also how it makes you feel, the conversation between you and somebody that you have, although you don't see them every day, you know that it's always a nice experience, and it's a nice conversation when you are there. That's all things, people, that add value to a particular experience, and that's sort of non-monetary costs. That we or what we can call non-monetary costs. The time, the physical cost, the psychological cost, and the sensory cost, and we'll have a look at each of those, what they mean. Let's look, for instance, at time cost. Time cost is when you have to, for instance, wait. You're not very good at queuing, and none of us like to stand in a queue. But it's almost, if sometimes you become irritable in the queue, you know that you have to queue, because you can't be the only customer that needs that particular service. But you almost sort of feel, damn, I'm wasting time. I could have done this and this and this while I'm waiting in the queue, and that's where the time cost comes in. In other words, how valuable is that time to you, that particular service will offer you or not? The physical cost comes with your experience while, let's say, for instance, you are queuing. Now it's a hot day, and it's a small room, and there are many people, and the aircon doesn't work. So you become very, very there's a high level of discomfort, and that adds to the experience, or, well, it definitely will negatively impact on it. Your psychological cost, if we can use the example again, for instance, of flying from Cape Town to Durban, for instance, If you have fear of flying, that is, in other words, a psychological cost is your perceived risk, and the fear of not receiving the experience that you actually have paid for or expected. In this case, we can use that example of your fear for flying. That definitely, does your fear for flying beat? Is your fear for flying that great that you are prepared to rather not fly and get there in 2 hours, but rather get in a car and take 15 hours to do it? Because then becomes a combination of a physiological and time cost, because now the time that you would have spent, that you could have done something else. For instance, you're going away for the weekend. You know that if you fly there, you're there in 2 hours, and if you drive there, you're probably going to get there only the next day. It means that the time for you to relax, firstly, you need time to recover. The time to relax is so much less because you also have to go back to where you've come from, where the convenience of getting on a plane, getting there, leaves you with more time to relax, and you didn't have to drive and concentrate, so you're also more relaxed when you get there. But if you have a fear for flying, you might not get there relaxed, and as a result of that, you might end up driving there, because regardless of the time, then the time cost isn't the issue for you anymore, because the physiological component is more important to you. Your sensory cost, that is, for instance, anything to do with your senses. For instance, unpleasant smells and loud noises, that can all affect your experience and add to, in row we say customer cost. Customer cost is what's included in determining the value that the customer perceives the service to be for them. In other words, if all of these things add up, is your total customer cost, if that is higher than the price that you have paid, then you would perceive this not to be a service of great value. The opposite is, however, true. If that what you've paid is so much less than your customer cost, then it means that you actually have a fantastic experience, because you think, oh geez, I've paid too little for this because I've really got a great service out of this one. That's how we determine perceived cost, the benefit, and deduct from that the customer's cost. Right, let's go to price and demand. Now this is quite interesting, because this also impacts on what is perceived to be valuable or not. We all know that when you're generally, if the demand of a service drops, is usually because there was an increase in prices. Okay, so if your prices of a particular product increases, usually the demand drops. The opposite is also obviously true. It's different though, because we need to look at the elasticity of demand. In other words, what happens to and what is elasticity of demand, and what is inelasticity of demand. If we look at that particular, image on the screen, the one D1 that starts right at the top indicates to you that that's demand 1, and that's the demand for instance, hotel rooms. If the price of a hotel room drops, there's not a significant drop in demand. In other words, usually you expect, if the price drops a bit, there will be increase in demand. There's not a significant increase here in demand, because that means, or if we reverse the situation, there's an increase in price, does that affect the demand for the hotel rooms? There's not a significant drop in the demand because of the increase in price. However, if we look at airlines, for instance, that is exactly the opposite. If they drop the price, there will be an increase in demand. In the first instance, where the the price or the change in price doesn't really affect the demand that much. It means that there is a demand inelasticity. In other words, it's not a significant change in demand if there's a change in price. The opposite, however, like with the airlines, if there's a change in price and that significantly changes the demand, positively or negatively, it means that demand is an elastic demand. In other words, like an elastic band. Okay. The further you can stretch it, it doesn't return to the same original shape. If there's a huge change either way in demand, either a drop or an increase in demand, it means that there's a demand or that demand is elastic, like the elastic band. You can stretch it out. But a piece of string, if you have a piece of string, you can't really stretch a piece of string. It's as long as it is. Okay, from where you hold it in your one hand to the other. That's it. That's how long that piece of string is. If it's however an elastic band, and you can actually extend it further, if I can use that particular example. Again, people, am I going to ask you something like this and give you a diagram and give you a case study and say, illustrate this to me? No. But you need to know that what the concept of elasticity of demand is. Right. What factors influence the elasticity, price elasticity of demand for a service? Availability of substitutes. How many alternative options do we have? We know with products, it's often much easier because there are greater substitutes. So people are more price sensitive, and they will go for a cheaper one because apart from personal preference, if you have to choose between Willard's and Simba and Lay's salt and vinegar tastes like salt and vinegar, and the one tastes exactly the same as the other. It's just a different type of chip, for instance, and then it becomes a personal preference, but the taste is not going to change. The salt and vinegar of Simba is not going to taste like fruit chutney, for instance, and as a result of that, there are more options and substitutes available, and therefore there is a greater price elasticity, which means that the demand can fluctuate, and people will buy something if it's cheaper, and it offers you almost exactly the same attributes. The demand is inclined to be inelastic for complementary services. In other words, if you add something extra, it doesn't really increase your demand for a particular product. If, for instance, you can now get a free cup of coffee, or maybe a discount on your next haircut, it's not going to significantly impact on it. People are prepared to say, you know what, I'm only going to cut my hair again in 6 weeks, so nah, it's not really. If it's something that is more of a greater immediate benefit to me, that extra complimentary service that's offered, that might sway it for me. Then obviously the relationship to the prices that your competitors are asking for the same service, that plays a very important role and influences your price elasticity of demand. Furthermore, how much time do you have available? If you do not have time available, if you need to get to Durban very quickly, you cannot wait, you cannot drive, you would obviously, it will impact on the price elasticity of demand. And similarly, if the product is it really something that you need, or is it something that's just luxurious and you want it, you desire it, but you don't really need it? That's also a a fifth component or factor that influences your price elasticity of demand. Right. Are we doing for time? No, we've got more than enough time for today's talk. Right. Any questions at this point, or everybody still here? Everybody still awake? Good. I'm assuming that no reply means that everybody's fine. Right. Different approaches that we can take, or businesses can take, to how they price their services. What different approaches can we take? Businesses usually, regardless if you're a service provider or if you're a producer, or a retailer, a wholesaler, you want to make a profit. We're not a charity. There are charities, yes, but therefore they are not in business. They are serving a particular cause. Businesses in general want to make a profit. Your ultimate long-term goal is to obviously make the maximum profit that you can, and therefore sometimes in the short run you sacrifice some profit margins, and or you take your profit and you reinvest it in your business. But basically, businesses want to make money. They want a return on the investment. If you borrowed 100,000 Rand from the bank to open a new business, you want a return on your money. You don't want to just break even every month. In other words, what it costs you to produce your service and offer your service is exactly the same as what you what you charge for your service. Then you're breaking even. You're not making a profit, you're not making a loss, but you're also going nowhere. Regardless of what the pricing objectives of your company is, the price that you charge has to be more than the total cost of providing that service. That's just common sense. That's how you make a profit. What you charge needs to be more than what it costs you. It's as simple as that. Talking about cost, I was horrified this morning. Fortunately, I actually filled up my tank of my car yesterday, but R1 per liter of petrol more expensive. I don't think any students are going to come to campus anymore for contact sessions, regardless. It's just too expensive. But I'm more concerned about the impact that will have on the prices of other products, products that have to be transported, because we know that if the petrol price goes up, everything else goes up. Anyway, forget about the doom and gloom. That was just a sort of a side note to myself. Different approaches that we can take. Let's look at 3 different approaches that is very common amongst service providers. They can use or do use either a cost-based, a competition-based, or a value-based pricing strategy. Let's look at each of those individually. What is a cost-based pricing? Cost-based pricing, we also first have to realize that there are different costs that combine to form what the total cost is, and that is your fixed cost. You can't change that. That's your rent. It doesn't matter if nobody comes to your business this month, you still have to pay that amount. Okay, so that is not really affected by an increase in demand. If there's more people going through the doors, great, your profit will increase, but your fixed costs remain the same. You're running into trouble when exactly the opposite is true. When there's not an increase in demand, if there's maybe been a slight reduction in your prices, your fixed cost, however, stays the same. The variable cost, that is linked directly to the volume of your production, the volume of your output. In other words, if there are more people visiting your business or using your service a particular month, the variable cost is in direct relation to that. At some point, you get to another break-even point. Let's say, for instance, you've got 5 people working for you or 5 hairdressers working at your salon, and there's a huge increase in demand because you've dropped your prices slightly. You either need to work longer hours, which is probably the sensible thing to do, or you have to balance that with maybe employing more hairdressers, for instance, to address the additional demand. That's where you're going to do your second break-even analysis and determine, okay, how many new people can I actually afford to appoint to address my increase in demand? Because at some point, it's no point in us dropping the prices, getting more customers, but also we have to employ more staff. So our variable cost increase, and therefore it doesn't really impact in our overall profit at all. Then there's no point in dropping your price. Right, semi-fixed cost is cost that is related to your increases or decreases in your capacity. In other words, your capacity to deliver your service. Are you still able to do it in the same manner that you have? If there is obviously increases and decreases in that, there's a cost involved. It is a positive or a negative, depending if it's increasing or decreasing, but that's a semi-fixed cost that also forms part of your total cost. Right. Now, your cost-based pricing methods, there are two. You can actually have a cost plus pricing. That's where you basically say, right, this is my total cost. The price, I'm going to add my profit. Maybe let's decide that we're going to have 15% markup on all our products. That's our profit. Or we're going to have, let's say, for instance, like in the first example, have a in the first example, we take a monetary value on as a profit. Let's say, for instance, your total cost.
Sorry, sir.
Excuse me. Yes.
Sorry, sir. I don't know if Nikita told you that I'm watching it with her.
You're watching?
I'm watching the videos with her. Kia. Yeah.
Okay. No. Okay. With Kia. Okay. No. I've realized that. Sometimes I know that you like twins in that regard. At least today both of you are there. But listen. Okay. Thanks for mentioning that, because obviously that will not pick up when I print the class attendance at the end of the day. So thanks for putting that out. I didn't realize that. I actually thought about it, but I forgot about it. Thanks for reminding me again, because I need to mark her then present as well. I know that is the case because you are flatmates, but obviously it will not pick up on on Teams when I print the attendance at the end of the day. Okay, right. No problem. Thank you very much. I'll make a mental note of that. I actually made a physical note by writing it down. Otherwise, definitely my mental note is going to fly out the window. If we look at, if we come back to cost, your cost plus pricing, what is your price? Your price is your total cost, and then you add your profit amount to it, or your profit margin to it. In that little those calculations on the screen, there are two ways that could be expressed. It could be done as an amount. In other words, you take the amount. Let's say, for instance, your total cost is 4,500 Rand in that case. Your profit amount is 1,500 Rand, so you will be selling it for 6,000 Rand. That will be your selling price. So in that case, the markup as a percentage of your cost would be 33%. If you take your profit amount, 2,500 Rand, as a percentage of your price, which is 6,000 Rand, it will be less, it will be 25%. Okay. So that's just how that calculation works, your markup pricing. Okay, let's look at another one. Comparing, that's the second one I said. Let's compare prices with our competitors. Price comparisons is only valuable really if your competitors are offering something similar to yours. If the service is similar to yours, then it will be of value for you to do it. But there's no point in comparing prices with other service providers if they're not offering the same. If they're offering less than you, if they're offering more than you, then you can't really compare. It's a useful price setting approach when there are not too many differences between the competitors. Let's look at another, and that's probably the most important one, but also the most difficult one. Setting prices by considering what customers will be willing to pay based on the value they believe they will receive is what the value-based pricing is about. What are you willing to pay? What value do you believe you're going to receive? The relationship between those is what is what value-based pricing is about. As we said right at the start of this session today, it is very difficult to determine because, I mean, what's valuable to you is not valuable to me. I might have used the example before. If I've been in the desert for 3 days and I haven't had any food or drink, and you actually offer me a brand new iPhone, I'm going to say, you know what you can do with that phone. Rather give me a glass of water or give me something to eat. I think it was recently as one of the South Africans, the first person in the world to actually from Cape Town to South America, he paddled on a boat that he manufactured himself. And when he eventually got there, I think it took him about 3 months or something like that. So when he eventually got there to South America, the first thing he wanted, because he was just basically living off rations that he had on board, and then basically he also had something that converts or desalinates water, so he can actually use the seawater to drink it because he's removed the salt from it. Was a cheeseburger and a Coke. And I promise you, I could imagine if you've been on the water for 3 months, that's 90 days, regardless. I mean, and you see nothing but water, and you basically live from rations and dry stuff and from tin cans. No, really, I promise you. If you offer me anything, if you offer me a lot of money, I would say, no, you know what, I'm just hungry. So again, what's valuable for one person is not necessarily valuable for another person, and it's based on what currently that need is at that point. And that's why usually it's different. If I had my haircut yesterday, do I need a haircut today? No, I don't. So I mean, there's no real value for me in having my haircut today. So that service is of no value to me. However, if I can't see through my fringe and I need a haircut, then it will be of greater value to me. Right. Value-based pricing, if we continue with what we have started on the previous one, when this particular approach is taken, a service provider needs to understand that the customers put or use 4 elements to determine if something is valuable to them or not. Something that is lower in price than maybe your competitor is one of the factors that equates to value. Value is also what I receive for what I give. It is also the quality I receive for what I've paid. And then, excuse me, value can also be, oops-a-daisy. Sorry, I've just got a, sorry, there was a hiccup. I needed to quickly take a sip of water. Value can also then be what I see in the service. Like I said, I mean, do I have a need for that particular service? These are all 4 components that can affect what is perceived as value in the eyes of the customer. Right. Value is perceived as a lower price. Yes, could definitely be. There's often discounting involved. There are obviously a few different forms of lower price or pricing that affects the perception of what is valuable to the customer. Some customers would see that would see a lower price, like a discount, for instance, as something of value, and it's usually done by businesses or by service providers to attract the attention of price-sensitive customers. Customers who work on a tight budget, if there's any reduction in price, they would rather use that service that has reduced their price. There's also a penetration pricing. That is when a strategy that is followed when you are launching a new product or you are redesigning a particular service, which you offer then at a lower price than usual. Odd-even pricing is a strategy that is very common and used regularly. For instance, when the pricing is done as R19.99, it's R20. But because it doesn't say 20, but it says 19.99, people perceive it to be cheaper. Differential pricing is also called what we call Cinco pricing. It's often preferred pricing strategy to use when there's a great fluctuations in your demand over a period of time. Your pricing is then used to sort of smooth out the fluctuations in demand. You know that sometimes if it's out of season, a particular product is slightly cheaper, but then there's an increase in price in season. People are prepared to pay more during that time, so it evens out over a period of time. And then you've got your dynamic pricing, which is also commonly known as personalized or customized pricing. And this is often used in situations where the supply and the demand fluctuates frequently, for instance. There's often airlines. Prices are different. They vary. I've gone in one day when I initially was starting my search for cheapest possible flights to get to New York. In one day, 3 different times during the day, there were 3 different prices offered on the same package. So there's a very regular fluctuation in prices, and they do that based on how the bookings received, because airlines and bus services and those companies who transport people in large numbers, they know they will always have a certain number of seats available at a certain price. And that's why when you go onto a website and book a flight now for a trip you're going to take 3 months from now, you will get it at a much cheaper price than right before the flight or in the last week before the flight departs. But depending on how the bookings have gone, it might be that those cheaper flights or prices are also available in that last week, depending on how many people have actually taken that offer. And that's what is referred to as dynamic pricing. If we look at the second one, what is value is what I perceive or what I receive for what I give, is that we can look here at price bundling, for instance. Price bundling can be used to package 2 or more services in a single package for a special price. For instance, if you are a tour operator, you can bundle a service of offering your airfare as well as your car rental and accommodation and all the charges in a single package, which means that you cannot really you have to take that particular package. There's also an option available, which is the other choice, where you can separately book those. I know that very often if you go onto a website of an airline, they have these other options available for you to to book accommodation and to book car rentals. So in other words, you can do that separately, but when you bundle it, it's one package. You can't take just a section of that package. It's an all-inclusive package. That's usually when people don't have the time to shop around, and that's where the time factor comes in. If time is valuable to you and you cannot spend time shopping around, then you would probably go for an option like this, a bundled option. Right, value could also be the quality I received for the price I pay. Now, your market segmentation pricing. Your market segmentation pricing is when the service organization charges different prices, for instance, to groups that have a different perception of quality. For example, you may have a service organization or a service provider that offer a reduction in price to senior citizens, for instance, because they know that those people will support their service during the times that their regular customers are actually at work. Value pricing, on the other hand, is when customers receive more for less. For example, some airlines offer lower fares by reducing the costs that's associated with the additional services like not offering drinks or in-flight meals and stuff like that. For some people, you know what? It's like one of the ministers in Parliament a number of years ago when they complained about the allowances and obviously what they were entitled to. He got up and it was about the prices of their flights, and they had to now contribute to it as well. And he basically says, you want to fly, you want to eat. And it's almost that sort of argument. Some people just want to get from Cape Town to Durban as quickly as possible. They don't really care if there's a meal served on board or not. They'll pack a bottled water for them, and obviously they'll have a meal before they go, and they have one when they get there. So that's not an issue to them. But to some people, and I think, well, not to some people, but also if it's a different trip, like for instance, Cape Town to London or Cape Town to New York, you know what? I'm not really going to be very, very happy if there's no food and drinks on the plane. But anyway, some people perceive it as greater value if they can get to their destination and no additional necessarily small benefits is going to add to the value of their experience. Right. Prestige pricing. Some people, there's a perception among some consumers that if something is more expensive, it must be of a better quality, and that could also be one of the strategies that sometimes is followed. And then price skimming is a strategy that is followed when a new service is introduced, and it offers significant improvements to what has been offered previously. I think that is almost about what I wanted to cover for today. I think it actually is what we wanted to cover for today. We usually end a week in a chapter by conducting a case study. I have included, and I'm going to go to the next page, I have included a case study for you. The case study is on F&B Connect. You'll find it in your textbooks on page 166 to 168. It's also on these slides, and then there are a number of questions. I want you to read through this before we meet for next Monday session. We can discuss this in next Monday session, please, like we always do. The questions, if I go back one slide, would be along the line of explaining how price services differ from pricing to physical price. How do pricing differ? Why is it different? Remember, we refer here to the ownership and the intangibility. You cannot own a service. Okay. Discuss customers' perception of value. I think we've done that, but we're going to discuss it again to see if you understand it and know where to get it in your textbooks. Explain the influence of price changes on demand. Okay, that's your pricing elasticity of demand on demand. Discuss the difference between cost-based, competition-based, and value-based pricing. It's straightforward. So please read through that case study that is in your book, but it's also on the slides, and then we'll discuss these questions on Monday. Everybody fine with that?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody had any problems linking up to the live session?
No, sir.
All good. The fact that we are chatting means that at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of you are here, which is 8 actually if we count Kia as well. And I think that's about full house, yes. But thanks very much. It's been an up and down week. It's been a crazy week. Believe it or not, there's another long weekend ahead of us in 2 weeks' time. So if you want to set that as a goal for yourself to give your best for the next 2 weeks, at least there will be a reward. That would be the 26th and the 27th of April for those who don't know. Believe me, I know when I've got an off day because that's catch up. But thanks very much. If there's nothing any of you want to ask or add, we can end the session and we will chat again next Monday. Is everybody good? Okay, fantastic. Keep well. Enjoy the rest of the week. Study hard, and we'll chat again on Monday.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
All good. Bye-bye.
Bye.